Okay, we're back. So when we left off just now, we're connecting to MongoLab, and for the most part, either you can do one or the other. You can connect locally to your system, or you can connect to MongoLab, right? What we want to get to is that everyone can connect to MongoLab eventually, right? And that means me having to talk to IT for some of you, to get you guys, maybe there's something blocked or whatever. Or it could be, if you're using Cloud9, there might be a fix for us to connect to MongoLab. And I'll try that remotely, and I'll try and get that working for you guys as well. Okay, but for now, what I want you to do is I want you to go up on GitHub, right? And I have a little example project that we're going to download, and I'm going to explain it. We're going to build it, and then I'm going to explain how it goes step by step, and we're going to build it from scratch. Okay, so if you want to go to Georgian, right? Underneath that, there's a COMP2068 Mongo demo, right? That's the one I want you to download. I like it. File uploading is now available. That's new. So what you need to do is download this repository. Now, this repository, nice thing about it is it has gulp integration, right? So I included all that for you guys, right? And it has everything you need to connect to the database that's local, right? So please download this module. And again, you have to do npm install. If you want to use your TypeScript definitions, you have to do tsd install, and you're going to have to do a Bower install potentially as well, right? But actually, I think I have Bower running already on it. All right, so I think definitely an npm install for sure, and a tsd install if you want to run TypeScript. Okay, so please download this thing and install it. All right, download the whole thing. Yeah, download the whole thing, because what I want to show you a complete working project, and then we're going to get to that, right? And this is a great example. I'm giving you a project we can work with, because your next lab, right, not this week, but the week we get back, is going to be based on this stuff, right? How to do CRUD. So I'm going to show you CRUD, create, read, update, and delete with Mongo. And then what I want to do, so you've seen it, and then we'll build it, and we'll talk about it, right? Because I want to talk about it step by step, because there's a lot of it, right? We won't be able to do the whole thing today, right? Because it takes a bit of time to set everything up. And I want to talk all about all the piece parts to it, because otherwise you won't understand it all, right? There's too many pieces to make sense of. All right, let me know when you guys are ready, and then I'll go into my piece, right? All right, so let's finish off some of this. So that's MongoDB. We can find posts. Obviously, would be your collection. You can do a find, and you can find specifically what you're looking for. If you have more than one, name as an example. If I want to leave this, I'm going to kind of exit here, and I'm running Mongo in the background. So if I go Mongo, right, and if I go use Lucy, right, here's Lucy, and if I go show DBS, right, here's all the local databases I've been trying out, right? So if I go to fruit.find, right? I see two fruits, bananas and peach, right? And let's say, for example, notice that I have a couple things that are the same. But what about if I want also to add a color? I want to update. I want to update my banana fruit, right? So I want to add in another field. Do you think that I can add in just a property? Could I just add in a property? Is that possible with Mongo? Or do I have to update everything? What do you think it should be? Right? Let's try it out. So if I go db.fruit.update, right? Well, what am I updating? I got to find something first, right? I got to find a specific fruit that I'm going to update. So first I got to find a fruit, let's say with a name, where name is equal to bananas. Just the bananas, right? So I got to be able to do that specific, right? So there's the fruit. Could I then pipe it into, an update? Can I do that? Can I pipe it into an update as an example? Is that how it works? Or, and the best way to see this is to actually go onto the API, like I said. So if I say MongoDB update document. There we are. And then here's my collection update. That's whatever the collection is. And it'll give you the query, which is the first part, the update, and the options, right? So that's the format it takes. So db.collection, whatever the query is, right? Then the update. Okay. So the query is the document that you want to find. And the selection criteria for the update, the same query selectors as in the find method are available. So if I want to find the name, bananas, and then I want to update, the modifications to apply for details, see update parameter, right? Okay, I update specific fields. If the update document contains update operator modifiers, such as those using the set modifier, then the update document must contain only update operator expressions. And hopefully they give you some examples of how to get this done. Here it is. db.people.update, where name is equal to Andy, right? Notice how he included name, Andy, rating 1, score 1, and upsert is true. And it says, consider when multiple clients issue the following update with upsert true at the same time, right? So if all update operations complete the query portion before any client successfully inserts data and there is no unique index on the name field, then each update operation may result in an insert. Okay, so basic things. Let's just do this. So we're searching for bananas, and I want to add in. I don't want to do this. Look, notice how they put the name in twice. Huh? I just want to insert a color of yellow, right? So let's see if that can work, right? I'm going to clear the screen, right? Remember, it takes the same. The query is the same as the DB find, right? So clear. There it is. And I want to do this. I want to say db.update. So the first part is what I'm looking for, right? And it's got to be the collection I'm looking at. So fruit update. I'm looking for bananas. Name is equal to bananas. Sorry, name. Where name is equal to bananas. Right? That's the first piece. Right? The next piece is what you want to update. So the field that I'm adding in. Right? Notice the format here. The second piece is also an object, which means I have to start it off with an object, right? The open brace. So it's got to be another object. This is the object the first one is the object that I'm looking for. The second one is the object that I'm inserting, right? So I'm going to say, okay, where name is equal to bananas, I'm going to add in color, right? And we'll call it yellow. And press enter. Right result, matched 1, upserted 0, modified 1. Okay. db.fruit.find. Now if you notice I have an object with a color of yellow. What happened to the banana? Yep. So just to be clear, remember I said like you think that it's okay, but really when you have, even though Mongo is schemaless, just keep this in mind. When you do an update operation, right? My update updates the document, the whole document. And if I don't send things back up, doesn't include them, right? So let's try this again. So I'm going to do back up. There is no name bananas now. I'll fail this one, right? This will fail now. If I do this and press enter again, it's going to say right result match 0 because there is no name bananas, right, anymore. What I could do, where color is equal to yellow, right? I could do that. And then I want to insert name, right, as an example, is bananas. Now you might think, why is Tom showing us this stuff? How come I'm doing command line so much? Because if you get this piece, then when we do go back to Express, right, and you see some of the commands, you'll get it. You'll remember that, when we do an insert, I got to send everything back out there to I can't just insert one thing. All right, so let's see if I do a db.find, db.fruit, dot find, and then pipe that into pretty for a second, I get this, right? Notice that I get name is equal to bananas. Oh man, did I mess up again? So let's do this again. So bananas, color is yellow, but I also want to put back in bananas. So name, bananas, color is yellow, and then do that. Those are the two fields I want in there now. Press enter. And then when I go up again, and I see both, right? ID, and this is what prettifying does, by the way, right? I have a peach, which is one, and then the other one is an ID of whatever it is, the name bananas, and the color yellow, right? So whenever I update, I got to include all the data that I need to update in that document, not just the field that I want to update. All right. Let's remove, we want to remove now, I want to remove the peach fruit, right? How do I do that? So I'm guessing it'd be like this, db.fruit, fruit.remove, and we're going to say the same criteria, right? We're going to search for something. Here's our selection criteria, right? So we're going to say where name is equal to peach. Removed, right? And if I do now again, if I go back to db.find.pretty, notice that there isn't any more peach. So we've done full CRUD, ladies and gents, right? We created it by using an insert. We updated it. And the update is neat because it also has that search criteria on the front end. And we've also done a deletion, a remove, right? At the same time that we've done those three pieces, right, we've also been able to search with the find command, right? So all those things that we just saw, that create, read, update, and delete, are the same things we're going to do in our Express. Any questions before we move on? So we're using BSIM, which looks very similar to JSON format when we do stuff, right? So it should be familiar to you if you've done any kind of JavaScript before. Okay, so some good practice there. I like it. Let's go back to this. So we talked about how to get it. We talked about how to install it. And now this is a way where you can configure the path. If you want to specifically configure a path to a different place, notice how Rich kind of aligned it so that it goes into your username node data or wherever you want it to go, right? Again, my recommendation is you run it in the global space so you can use it from anywhere, right? So it doesn't have to work for your user. CRUD operations we've done. Here's an example of he's used the beer example, right? And he's using the default test database. By the way, there is a test database that's created automatically for you, right? And here's some examples of where you can put in different kinds of data. Right now, I've only put in some strings, but you can certainly mix it up. Notice that there's two different models for this thing. One that has the name and the type. So name for the beer would be Steam Whistle, or the brand, if you will. The type is Pilsner. Here, name is Sleeman Cream Ale, and type is ale, right? But on sale is another object, right, or another property that's true. Notice how there's two different ways of writing it. Name, I've been using name in quotations, but you can certainly use the property names without. Both would work fine, right? So that's kind of one way of looking at it. But there's two different ways of doing it. There's one document, but this is the second document. Notice that the second document isn't the same as the first, but perfectly fine to insert into your database because it's schemaless. It doesn't care, right? MongoDB doesn't care about what you insert into it. As long as you follow the syntax protocol, it's cool, which is good. That's powerful. All right. We did the find pretty, and we did the update where we did kind of like a, hey, here's our thing. And now take a look. You can also use the $set method, right, to set on sale to false. Okay, let's try that. Instead of updating, which doesn't include the $set, let's see if we can set a specific property in our database with the update to another property. Right, so let's try that out. So go back. So I want to set the color of my bananas to brown because you know what? They're a little old. Right now, my bananas are brown. Right, so let's try this out. So I'll say db.fruit update. We're targeting the fruit with name. I'll use name by itself. Name bananas, right? And then what I want to do is the set. And notice the syntax that we have in our PowerPoint: set, and then colon, and then the object, right, that we're setting, right? So set, colon, and then the object, which is the color that we're going to set to brown. Okay, what did I miss? I set my color. Yes, you're right. You're talking about this one. Next to color? Or another one over here, right? Yes.
And then the one on the left side of the comma.
This one.
Yeah, it has to be at the end.
Sorry?
It has to be at the end of your.
Oh. So you're saying don't do this at all, right?
Yeah, and then show it on
Put it at the end over here.
the way end.
The way end. The way end, right? And then, is that okay? Glad that you guys are watching. How come it's not working? I don't understand. Where? Here? So let's, I mean, I'm just using this example, right? So DB, right? There's the beers update. We're using the fruit update. We're searching for bananas, right? Name is equal to bananas, right? Whatever it is, right? Here it is. And we're setting the color value, right? Which is what we're doing. Notice how we have an extra semicolon here that's missing, or this whole thing is an update. All right, well, let's check it out on, if we can't figure it out, oh, finally it closed. If we can't figure out what it is, right, because it's not working, then we can look here, right, because here's our DB. And it's going to give us our general form up here, right, when we use our set. And it's going to show us potentially some examples right up online for how to get it done. And that's the regular way of doing it. Upset, upsert is true, sharded. Just want to see which one is a set. The set operator to replace the value of an item field. Okay, here we go. So here's the ID. That's what we're searching for, ID 1. And then in there, oh, I see. So we still got to include the inc field. The inc field operators increment the stock field. We don't want to do that. We want to set the other one, which is kind of what I've done, but we have to put all this in brackets. Okay, that's what I missed. Thank you. So what it is actually it looks like this. You have there's a bracket here. It's just syntax, and then another bracket here, and then that would work. Here we go. So now, and I'll bring that up again in a second so I can show you. So if I go to DB, find that pretty, then I see that the color is brown, right? So yeah, so the way to look at it is each of the parts of the update, the first part is an object, and the second part has to be a complete object as well. So the $ set has to be almost like the name of of another object that you're adding in. Let's try that again to show you what I'm talking about one more time, right? So I want to do the same thing. I want to say db.fruit.update, and I want to search for banana, right? So with the name of banana, let's do that. Bananas. Right? And I got to put it in the whole thing as an object. So I got to put it in curly braces, right? And then I want to change my bananas to brown bananas. Let's just say it, right? So I do the $ set inside the brackets, and I want to look at the name property, right? And I want to set it to brown bananas, right? Make sense? So you see that there's two objects. One here, followed by a comma. This object is the search, the selector, and this is the second object from this curly brace all the way to the end. And then inside this object is another object, the one we're replacing or updating. Okay, if I press enter here, and then I go up and see the, I see that I got a name of brown bananas, right? Another specialized update. Makes sense. I know we're going slow on this one, but if you don't get this piece, then the other piece won't make any sense to you. Okay, let's keep going through this thing. Make sure that you got it all. We talked about the deletion by name or by whatever. You can search for whatever you want. So this can be whatever search criteria you're looking for, right? Whether it's the name or an ID, you can search from whatever kind of thing from a filtering perspective. And by the way, you can do other kinds of filtering. You can search if the number is greater than or less than, and if we can look at filtering later on in part 2 of this whole thing, right? But you can be very specific in terms of the stuff you're looking for. All right. So we're going to do Mongoose, and Mongoose is an NPM package, and I've included it in our little demo today. So let's take a look, right? So now we're going to get to the other part. I'm going to just close off this terminal window right here, but keep my Mongo server running, right? So this is my Mongo server. I want to keep this one running, and I want to keep this one just to fool around with my terminal, all right? Okay, I've got my, I'm just going to put this away. I'm going to pull up COMP2068, and I have this, Mongo demo that I'm going to put out into Visual Studio Code. So here's Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to put out this Mongo demo. So here it is, COMP2068 Mongo demo. And remember what I can do with it now that I got this running. I want to explain it, but I want to show you what it looks like first. I want to pull up in terminal or in command prompt. I'll kill this one, so I don't need this one anymore. In command prompt, I want to run this thing. And how do I do it? I'm going to run gulp, because if you've installed everything properly, I'll have to use gulp, and then it'll run my code, right? Here's my home page. Notice that it's running, and it says MongoDB2 demo, and I did that on purpose, right? I've got my products, my services, they switch nicely, and now I have something new called articles, right? Now your article should show empty here, right? Because your database, if it's running properly, the only way this is going to run, by the way, is if you have MongoDB running as a server in the background in another command prompt. If you don't, it will fail. You won't be able to run this piece. And the way to know that is if you go to your command line, you've got to see connected to MongoDB. If you don't see connected to MongoDB on your command line, that means your server is not running. Okay. Now I've created a DB called, well, I'll show you where it is in the configuration, but it's something like Mongo demo. That's probably what the DB is called, the database. Okay, so I made a couple articles. Let's add a new article. I'll show you how this whole thing works. I'm going to add my new article. Here's another article, another silly article. There it is. And my content is going to be more silly stuff, right? There we go, and submit. Notice how I have my new article, my second article, another silly article, and if I click on any one of these, I'm going to get this. This is just accessing the database information right here, right? Inside a bunch of different list items, right? Okay, and I can perform full CRUD here. If I want to get rid of my another silly article, I just click delete, right? And then it's gone. So I can add, I can delete, and I can update. If I go to my second article, and I want to change this thing to a really silly article, right? And click submit. Now, this is a really silly article. So I'm doing full CRUD, showing you how this thing works. My About Us page, my Contact Us page. You notice my DB2 demo. Remember we had a problem last week of auto updating. There's a couple ways to do that live reload. One is to download a plugin for your Chrome browser or your whatever browser of your choice if you notice, my live reload has a plugin that's already there, and it says live reload is connected. So I've updated that. If you look at your gulp.js file, I've actually updated gulp.js with additional stuff to make your live reload potentially work for you, right? Okay, cool. So I'm in there, and what I want to do is I want to make a change to this MongoDB demo brand, and that's going to be found in your navbar.ejs, which is inside your server views partials navbar.ejs. I'm changing this just to show you from MongoDB2 just to MongoDB demo, and I'm just going to bring up this thing so you can see it here. So here it is over here, and I'm going to save. And when I do that, it automatically restarts and updates. But this is what happens sometimes with me, right? What happens with me is that it doesn't quite update the page. It refreshed the page. Notice that MongoDB is different now, but it hasn't given me any styles for my page whatsoever. Why is that? It's the way we've set up our project, but it's okay. If I refresh, it'll come up with a refreshed version of the page. Okay. So MongoDB is running and live. Let's talk about the different parts of this thing, right? In order for us to get Mongo running, we need a couple things. We need something called a model, right? Let me explain to you what a model would look like, okay? So if I go to my server, I've added a new folder in my server called models. Can you see this? This is part of our new structure, right? Under models, I have a new model called article. Take a look about what the model looks like. It's using something called a Mongoose schema. Whoa, Mongoose, what the hell is that? It's a new NPM module that I got to add in. Mongoose is an NPM module that we use to connect to MongoDB, all right? It's the most famous one. There's other ones as well. There's many modules that you can use to connect to other databases like MySQL if you want to, right? Or SQL database if you really want to. Most people use something like a Mongoose to connect to a MongoDB, and you can also use it to connect to MongoLab, all right? Here's something. We need to declare the same way we normally declare a module by requiring it. And then we're going to use this connect method to connect to the Mongo database. Okay, let's go back to that. So where would this be, do you think? This Mongoose connect method, where would I put that? If I was going to use this module, where do you think, just by logic? Think about our express structure right now, right? We have our server piece, we have our app, we have routes. Where would I put this thing? Where would it go? Logically, if you were going to put it in. Which JavaScript file or TypeScript file? Guys, you guys are all drawing a blank stuff. You guys don't have enough coffee? Did you guys take a break? Take a bio break? Who needs a back rub? All right. Someone's not responding nicely, right? Nobody? Bueller? Okay. Whole thing, kicks off. So app.js, we have to do the require for the first time, and we need to do this connect method and also put in the URL of the connection. Okay, so let's check that. So I'm gonna go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm gonna go to my app.ts file, and notice that there it is. So MongoDB, localhost, and lo and behold, this is the actual database name, COMP2068 Mongo demo, right? To prove that, I'm going to open up another little window here, and I'm going to say Mongo. I'm going to say show DBS, and notice that there's a COMP2068 Mongo demo. There it is, all right? So this is a live version of what we've been doing so far, right? Okay, let's check this out. So if I go in here, and if you've run it on your system, you now have this database. It's automatic. As soon as if it doesn't have it, it will be created for you, just like we've done when we were running Mongo before, right? All right, so if I go in here, if I go use COMP2068 Mongo demo, right? Here it is. And if I show collections, you notice that I have the articles collection. So if I go db.articles.find, and I pipe this into pretty to prettify it, oops. So this is what I get. I get two objects, right? One of them is my content. Here's my title. And there's something called the create date when it's created on. Okay, so those are the things that I have. Two objects. And one says the content is content for my new article, and the title is my new article. And the second one is a really silly article. Hey, look, it matches with what we see on the website. if I go to the website and look at this stuff under my articles page, notice that there's also 2 objects here. Okay, if I delete here, right, will it show up, persist over here? The answer is yes, and I'll prove that. I'll get rid of a really silly article. That's the title, and I'll do it by title. So I'll say db.articles.remove, right? And what do I want to remove? I want to remove an article with the title of a really silly, I guess spell this exactly, article, right? And press enter. Right, result 1, removed. And now I'm not going to search here. If I just refresh this page, notice how that my article is gone, right? So this is a great way to check. The reason why I'm showing you this is in the future when we do our user database, or you're going to do your final project and you want to do your testing, you do it locally first. You pull up your database to make sure it's all working out, right? And what you're doing is you're testing on the command line with Mongo at the same time that you're looking at your database views or your web page views, so you can see that both things are happening. Guys, this isn't like super exciting stuff, so I know some of you are glazing, but this is without a database, right? Really, we don't have an application, right? So application, especially a mean application, we need a database. And again, this is the M in the mean. Okay, so I've shown you how we connect. We use this Mongoose Connect methodology to connect to the database. Hey, you've got my files. I want you to connect to your database on MongoLab, right? How would you do that? Well, MongoLab has the connection criteria right here. So for people who are running with Cloud9, who've had trouble connecting, download my stuff and change your connection so it connects to MongoLab, this LucyDB you created lately, right? Make a new one, right? Make a new one called COMP2068 demo, right? So I'm going to kind of go to, now right now we're looking at LucyDB, right? And I want to create another one. I want to create a new database, right? So I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to create a new database, and we're going to call this the same thing as what my database is locally. It's going to be Windows Azure eventually, and we'll make it so that it's East US if we can. You got to be very careful because this has to match up with where I'm going to put it, right? So East US, and go single node. Okay, my database name, COMP2068 Mongo demo. Just like it matches up here, Mongo demo, right? I don't have to, I'm just doing it because just to be kind of similar. And I'm going to create a new Mongo deployment. I can make as many as these as I want, like as long as they're low, like 500, less than 500 megabytes altogether, we're good. Here it is, right? Mongo demo. And I'm going to go in here and create a new user, right, from my database. And I'm just going to do the same thing as I did last time. I'll just call it Thomas and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can choose whatever you want. And click Create. And I'm going to go back one step so I can see my database. And now you notice this is the connection string for my shell, but this one is my connection string that I would put in right here for Express. Okay, right here, the second one. So I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to go back out to Express to this one. And just to be clear, I'm just going to comment this one out and paste this one. Notice it's pretty long, right? And I'm going to do the Mongoose Connect thing. The Mongoose Connect. What I'm going to do is put this one in here. This is my connection string. Notice that's very similar. Just go all the way to the end. And just make some more room for me so I can do this properly for you guys. And what I'm going to do is, at the end, we're going to do that. Well, what's the difference? What's the difference between this one and what I had before? Well, DB user has to be how I put it in before. So it's going to be just Thomas. Password. Now, this is the problem with this. You want to store this somewhere safe where your password is not exposed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at Mongo demo and whatever. This is where it's going to be. I'm going to save this thing. And I'm going to go back to here and Control-C to stop. And we're going to rerun this thing, right? Watch, let's try this out. So I'm going to kind of do one of these. I'm going to say gulp. And now this one is going to take my new criteria, right? And if I go to articles, I should have none because I'm connected to a new database on MongoLab, right? Okay, if I click a new article on the database, we're going to say, here's a new one. Here's my content, new article contents, and click submit. It submits everything properly. If I want to see this in action, I want to go into MongoLab. Here's MongoLab. And I want to take a look at it, right? So let's look at collections now. There's no collections that I can see from my Mongo demo, right? So here's my users, here's my stats, right? My number of collections is 0. How did it work? Did I make a mistake? Well, yeah, I did. And I'll show you where I made the mistake. Remember that I'm using TypeScript, right? And I forgot to transpile. But I saved everything, so theoretically, it should have transpiled for me. Let's confirm that it did. Remember, because I'm doing things automatically. I always like to check my work, right? So I want to go back to app.js and just to make sure that it's going to the right place. And it is. Mongoose Connect, MongoDB, MongoLab, COMP2068 Mongo demo. All right, cool. It's one place to look. So it looks like everything went well, because if it didn't, then I would have a problem. And I would have an error because I'm also doing on error, right? Throw an error to the console. All right, so here's my app.ts. I'm throwing an error to the console if I have a problem. All right, so it looks like I'm connected to MongoDB. Just to make sure, I'm going to change this to MongoLab, right? So we know it's me. Right, so we kind of save. Right, it's going to restart my server. If it restarted properly, here it is. And now I'm connected to MongoLab to make sure that that's it. And refresh this one. But I should see, from a user collection perspective, there should be a collection, and I do. I see one that's called articles online. Right? Okay, here's my articles collection. If I look in there, I can see that there's one article, right? New article content. Here's a new one. Right? That's right live on MongoLab. Right? You're dying, eh? I'm killing you. I'm sorry, right? Any questions around this stuff, what we're doing and how we're connecting? So again, the connection string, notice how I just changed the connection string from the local database to the MongoLab database, and we're good. We're golden. Okay. So you need this piece. You need this Mongoose Connect. Mongoose is the module. We do this this path here. So we're actually adding in Mongoose for the very first time up on the top. Import Mongoose, require Mongoose, just like we normally would, right? We're going to talk about our routing in a second, right? But the next piece is we need to connect to the server, and we need to check to see if there's an error. And if there's no error, then we're good to go. That's what this one does. We also need, like I said, a model. And if I look at the models folder inside your server, that's a new thing we need to put in. Mongoose, even though MongoDB is schemaless, right? So there's no schema requirement for Mongo. We want to put it in anyway, right? We want to change this to kind of give a structure to our code, right? And this is what Mongoose allows us to do with the schema. We create a schema for it anyway. Take a look at this. We have a couple of items here. The way we create a schema is like the following. First, we name the property. So first we say var, my article schema is of new Mongoose schema. This is a class that's part of the Mongoose module, right? That's the first thing we do. So this new object requires all the data, the properties, right, for how your Mongoose schema is going to look, right? Like when you actually put it up online. When I use this schema, all of my documents are going to have the same structure, right? So they're going to have created, they're going to have a title, and they're going to have content. Those are the three things they're going to have, in addition to an ID, which is auto-generated, right? So those are the three things. Notice that underneath that, each of these properties is actually an object, and the object has two or more or one or more sub-properties, right? So one of them is the created is type. We use date as the type for created, right? And there's different types. If I kind of scroll over, you can see that if I want to put in different types, there's different type constructors that we can use, right? Same thing with default. I can put in default data if I want to, right? We want to set the defaults to null for some of these. Otherwise, you won't get any kind of input into your model whatsoever if you don't put a default, right? And then we can also put in a required message if it's not put it in. So for example, I need something, I need a title that's required. If I can't do a title, it'll error out. It'll say title is required. We can't add in a record without a title, right? If you don't put required in there, you can choose to put it in or not. Trim, what it allows you to do is it takes away any additional data from your string, because this is a string type. All right, so both these are string types with a capital S, if you notice. So that's what your model would look like. Your model looks like what your final document is going to be in each of your collections, right? So each of your collection, in this particular case, is going to be called the article collection, and we're going to add in, you know, these different properties. Hey, here's a question: where is my article? Where is my article mentioned for the first time? There is no collection, nothing that says, hey, my collection is the article collection, right? And by default, it takes the name that you give it, for example, article down here, and uses that. My Mongoose model, we called it an article, and as soon as I use this this schema, then I create the article. I use this model as the method for us to add things into the database or to poll the database. So we need a model, right? That's the first part. You guys are dying over there. You guys okay? Should I stop? I can stop. I don't mind. It does. Just you won't have it all, right? For next time. Yeah, this was a problem. No?
Yeah.
Did you do an npm install?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Do a TSD install? Did you guys get it to work? You guys are all good, right? Okay, I'll come around before the end of the day. So the model is necessary. So that's one. The next piece is whenever we do any kind of operations, we want to do them in the routing. So I have a new route. If you notice under routes, we have a new route file called articles. In here, we also include express. So we want to be able to do some express manipulation. We create an express router, just like we normally would, for example, in our index.ts file. We have the same structure. So here's our, we load in express, and we also create a router or a routing mechanism, right? That's what we say. Same thing we do here in our articles. Here's where when things kind of depart from what we did before, and you haven't seen this before. We do an import Mongoose. We add in the Mongoose module here, right? And then what we do is, and this is TypeScript, by the way. This is what TypeScript allows us to do. We kind of import an article model, and we use this require statement to point to the model's object that's inside of our folder structure. So once I do this article model, right, I can say that, well, then import. I can import my article. That's what the alias is. Article then means take a look at my article model and take the article object and make it equal to this. That's what this is. This is just an alias, this line 8, okay? Once I have access to the alias, then I can do something like this. If I was to type in article, dot find, notice I have all of the options that I have that come from Mongoose. I can do find, I can do remove, right? I can do update, right? All the same commands that we would normally do on the command line, I can do as part of my article object, and my article object is part of the Mongoose schema. That's what these lines do on line 8. I still get a look at my my articles collection though. So I start looking at, I'm starting to notice that my router.get is still a /, and this is where people get confused. They're like, I don't understand if I'm getting /, you're putting the / for articles. How are you getting to articles, right? Because I'm searching for articles, but then I'm getting this /. Where's that coming from? How do they connect, right? And this is the biggest source of confusion right here, because I'm seeing a /. Shouldn't I be seeing articles here? Well, no, because it's being generated by app.ts. So if I go back to app.ts, this is why it's confusing, because there's so many different parts to it. I'm creating an articles variable, and what I'm doing is I'm saying include my articles route. That's what all the routes I'm creating, right? Then down below, just like I did before, when I did my routes, I do app.use, and this is the route that we're actually using. So this is equivalent to the / when I go to that articles folder. So whenever I refer to / articles on the URL line, so if I go back to here, and if I click articles, notice that it says articles. This, right, what actually happens is it gets routed to this as, sorry, not this, this as just the root, the root route, if you will. And then we can use because article is a mongoose or a MongoDB object, if you will, right? I can use the .find command, right, and send an object to find. So here's what I'm finding. I'm saying, hey, send in this object. I want to search for the articles that's coming in, whatever the article is, right, that I'm getting. And I'm going to say basically render the articles based on, I'm searching for an article based on what the user is searching for. Okay, and that's what it's pulling up. So when I use the find, I'm just searching the database, and it's returning the title of the article that I'm looking for, right? And it's from there I can actually do the rest. I can actually render, and it's going to render the article's index. Okay, what the hell does this render mean? Whenever we see render, what does it mean? If I see render in the route, anybody? Okay, I'm going to stop talking soon because you guys are like phasing right out, and you guys are going to watch the YouTube one day, and you're going to go, "What the hell is he talking about?" Yeah.
Build the website.
Render? It does render the web page, right? But render, whenever I hear the word render with Express, it means I'm templating, right? If I use send file, I'm sending an actual document, a file, an HTML file or whatever, right? When I do render, that means I'm using the templating engine to create, which means what I'm actually pulling here is the index, articles index, is the template that I'm using, right? So if I look at that, if I go to views, under views, notice that now we also have an articles folder, and inside there I have an index.ejs, which is basically just the template for all of my articles. Now it also includes my header and my nav bar, just like before from our last example, right? Plus, it also does this for loop that loops through, right, all of my articles, right, by ID. That's what it does, and it lists them. Okay, so that's one part of what we do is we have to look at getting the data, and this is what this thing does, right? It kind of says, well, I want to create, I also create a link here to add a new article if I don't have one. But otherwise, in my unordered list, I look for, I kind of do, I loop through all of the existing articles based on the article's length. So I kind of say, well, how many articles do I have in my articles collection, right? Because the articles will come back with a length, because it's just an array of articles, right? Array of documents. Okay, and then what I'm doing here, using a little bit of Bootstrap on the outside, right? I'm doing this. I'm saying, hey, get a link. Create a link of articles based on the article ID, right? That's what I'm searching for. Okay, and then I can create some other things like edit article. And when I do that, the edit article will take me to the edit page, which is over here. Okay, so all the links and everything else are being created dynamically, and they're coming from the articles that we're reading for the database. All right, so that's what's happening first. So when we list the articles, these are all articles that are being pulled from the database, and we're doing that when we do this listing, this for loop, right? Okay, where it's actually happening is I'm looking for through the articles collection, right? And by ID, I'm listing the ID. If I want to list something that's missing here, I got my title. What about if I want to list the actual, the article itself, the content? How do I put that in? Can someone help me out? No one's going to help me out. I can see you guys are all glazing today, right? No one's interested in helping me. I'm on my own, right? How about you? Do you want to help me? You don't want to help me, do you? How about the man and the girl, right? Do you want to help me out?
I would.
You would, but Austin, you're just not into it?
If I could.
What do you mean? Okay, take a guess. So I want you to take a guess. Help me out here. Take a guess. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Here we go. So if articles is an array, right, of all the articles that I have in my database. Gentlemen, you're talking over me and I can hear you loud and clear, and it's, you know what, it's hard enough to do to keep everybody awake as it is with this stuff. Guys, this stuff is not super exciting, but we got to show it, because when you get to your final, project, this stuff will come around and bite you, right? So please pay attention. So let's go through this. So I want to add in, I've got my long line of stuff, and every time I loop through my articles, I'm showing the article ID, right? Take a look. Here's my article ID, right? And or by article ID, I'm looking through this. And here's a new one. This is the article title. So let's take a look. Here's my article title, right? Which is right here. And now I want to also put in there my article content. What do I put in? I want to show the content within every list item. Let's try it out. So tell me what to type and where to type it. Sure. You want to copy this, and where should I put it? Next to it?
Sure. I would put it under it.
Okay, under it. I will follow your wise and wonderful instructions.
That is a good idea.
Okay, next. Change this. Is that what you're thinking?
No, that's a good idea.
Oh, okay. I can see that you're thinking that, right?
You see that? Yeah.
I see that, and I'm going to do content, right? Is that what you're thinking?
That's exactly what
All right. I like your thinking, right? So let's try this out. I'm saving my document here, right? Which will restart my server in a second, right? Let's see if it reloads eventually. And there it is, right? Here's a new one, new article content. Now notice that it's on the same line. So new article content and here's a new one appears next to each other because they're inside the same content. I want to make it look nice because this looks like crap. You made it look like crap, man. All right, because you have to fix it. I don't know what you're gonna do. You better fix it for me, man, because you know what? I was depending on you, right? I'm joking.
Okay. So put it inside.
Well, we got an inside anchor tag right here, right? So we don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's own link. No, I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Take it out.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I want to kind of space it out here, right? Maybe under this BR tag, right, where it says the date string, I'm going to put this in here like this. I'll put another BR tag. It's not great. We can use CSS to clean that up even nicer. And I'll save this. I'll put my content and then date created. And go back and refresh. And now you have your new article content, right? So each of these properties, because each part of the array, thank you. Each part of the array, I know that was painful, but it is what it is, buddy. You know, I really do appreciate all your help and assistance. Right? You know how it is. All right. So as we go in through here, right, as you can see, so we have one list item that's repeating over and over again to create that dynamic field, like we normally would do in PHP, if you're a PHP person, or any other language that we use on the web. Python is another good example of how we can do this, right? We're looping through and we're testing. We're saying for basically, and again, I don't like to use I instead of for an index, but I'm just taking the example that we're going to see used again and again. So we loop through and we're looking at this index and we're saying, hey, take a look at this article, right? Search by index, by my ID, right? And for each one of these things, right, I want to do this. I want to have a title that says edit article, right? So if you click on the edit article, this is another anchor tag here, right? And it's going to show the title of the article that you want to edit, right? Let's go back. So again, if I hover over this thing, where's my edit article? Right? Click onto this thing, go back. I don't see that. Where does it come up? Take a look at the bottom though. Look what's happening. My local host for my path is this big long line. What is that? That's the ID, right? So when I put this in, if I click onto this thing, notice that the path is up here now. So it's the article and the article ID that creates our new, almost like our new website. It looks like a new website, right? But actually what we're doing is we're showing it by ID, right? The information we're getting is from the database. That's coming straight from our database based on the ID. And it's showing up on the path, right? Okay. Well, if that's true, how is the routing working for us to show this path, right? Well, I clicked on the article, which means this edit article is going to come up. This is another template that we're going to be using, right? So if I take a look at this thing and go back, and if I look at the edit.ejs template, right? Notice how it says, here's the article. It says edit article, and then we do kind of the same thing. I have my 2 buttons and so on. I'm not going to go into detail on the Bootstrap side, but it's basically showing the same thing. The one thing to note is here's the article title, right? And there is no for loop in this case. It's just taking the same data that we're getting, right? Where is the data coming from? It's coming from the router, right? So let's take a look at the routing. So if I go back to our routes and articles, so the first thing we're doing here when we do this find is we go to index. And what we're doing is we're using the find function to send in the articles array. And that's where that articles array is coming from right here. Because just like we're sending in the title when we use EJS for the title of a document, right? Anything that I mention here, title or articles on the left side, right, is the variable that's going to be available to the EJS template, right? That's what's available to the EJS template, title or articles. Hey, just as a lark, let's add in Austin as a name, right, for my whole document, right? So anytime you go to to my document, I'm going to put in another variable that I want to make available. So I'll say name, right? It's a brand new variable. I need a comma here, right? And I'm going to send in a name that we're going to say is Austin, right? So that's what's going to go in. So I'm going to save this. It's going to restart my server in a second. Now that I've got it, I want to access it. Again, this is just part of EJS. I'm going to go into my index.ejs file because this is where it's coming to, right? And I want to say, somewhere down here under articles, I'm going to make an H2 tag. There's my H2 tag. And let's just turn on some more scripting here. All right, so I'll say H2. And inside the H2, I'll put in % equals to name, right? And then %, right? Angle bracket. And this name will show up articles, and I'll say something like for space Austin, right? That's what will come up. So when I use the % equals, the angle bracket % equals, I'm saying take the value of the name variable and inject it inside my HTML. That's what I'm doing, right? And that's what I'm doing here. Articles is coming from the router. That's coming from right here. This articles is this one. And this is this value that I'm getting from my articles array. It's coming into my router from the article model. Okay, that's what's happening. I don't think you believe me. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I'm bluffing. So I'll save everything in a file, save all, and it'll restart my server nicely when I save everything. It's transpiling, it does everything, it restarts everything. Go back here, and just to speed it up, it redoes it, and I'll go back, and then refresh, articles for us, right? So you see, it totally works, right? So we can inject our variable. I mean, I can do it for every route that I have. I can make as many variables or as few as I want, right? And once I inject them, they're available to the entire document, right? And that's a key thing, because that means I have dynamic access to data, right, for my variables. Okay, let's check this out. Let's take that off, because you know what, Austin, you're cool, but you can't have it. Well, it just doesn't make any sense. All right, so let's just do this. I'll save it, and I'll go back and change my template again as well, right? So I don't need this piece up here. So I'll change my name. All right, cool. So I'll save everything, and I'll do a save all, and that'll reboot my my server and do everything else it needs to do. But I still have my content in here, and I could definitely add this in as an additional list item if I want, right, to make it a little nicer looking inside my for loop. Notice that each of these items, these list items, right, as an example, they're all part of one LI, And if I want it to be nice and clean this up, I probably would make a group of LIs, maybe a panel or something else that I add this whole list into because it's kind of ugly. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now. We'll do it later on. Okay, so that's it. And if you notice this, my anchor tag, here's my anchor tag here. My anchor tag is doing two things. It's saying go to articles and then use EJS to inject the ID as the second piece to my anchor, to my route. Okay, cool. How does it know how to do that? Because my routing is always going to be different. It's going to be my ID, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever it's going to generate from Mongo, right? So if I go back to my my articles here for my routes, if I look down, notice that I have an add, keep going down. Oh, look at this. Whenever you see this, right, colon's ID, right, the colon ID is actually a pattern that I'm matching. ID coming from the ID that I'm getting, right? And it understands what ID means, right? It's basically saying whatever the ID element that I'm getting, this ID, use that as the path that I'm going to be creating and how I want to render that. And notice that I'm actually doing an articles edit with my title and my article that I'm editing. And I'm actually doing a find by ID, which is another MongoDB method that I can do, find by ID, right? So if I was to test that out, and if I want to go check that out, if I want to find my article, first of all, let's do a db articles .find by itself .pretty, and I see there's only one article. Let's add a new article in. If I was going to add a new article from the command line here, it'd be hard because I have to add all these little different pieces in the ID, the content, the title, the created, all this stuff. Let's make Mongo do it for us by going in here and doing it right here. So I'm going to add a new article, and we'll say, you know, my title for the article is Austin's a good guy. Austin's a good guy. Now you're immortalized on YouTube too, right? Immortalized on YouTube, right? There we go. Submit, right? So I click submit. Now I've got this thing immortalized on YouTube, and if I go back to here and do a, let's do it at CLS, and kind of do a, I can see that, well, where is it going? Oh yeah, I'm up on MongoLab. I'm on MongoLab, which is over here. Where are we here? And if I do a refresh here, I might see a couple of articles here, right? Here they are. One of them is this new article. Here's a new one, and here's the one that he's immortalized on, right? There's the two articles that I got going on, right? I have the same control on MongoLab as I do locally. I just have to click the X, and I can get rid of it, just like I normally would, right? If I go back to this one here, right, notice that I'm listening for my ID, and that is what I'm sending into my edit, right? So I'm clicking the edit. I'm rendering the edit with that new path, whatever it's going to be. Whatever path I get that has the colon and the ID at the end, that comes from my, my view, which is this one, right? Once I send in this piece here, it detects that this is the ID, right, the route, because we're linked into Mongo, so it understands that, and then spits out the route. And if I was going to check it out online to see what that number is, if my feeling is if I go here, it should be 56C62A something. That should be the path for the ID. Let's check and see if that's true. 56C something. All right, so go back. I go here, and I go. If I click on Austin's a good guy, 56C2A. Notice it's the exact same ID in the path, right? So it looks like it's a unique identifier, like a unique path, like almost like you ever go to a website and like, how do they create that URL on the fly? They're not really creating a URL on the fly. They're doing this, right? The URL is appearing here, and it's creating the routing on the back end for you. So if I ever was going to go to this by itself, if I was just to type this in, localhost 3000, and I put this ID in just like this, if I copied it, let's just go into another incognito window to check it, right? So here we are, and if I just press Control V, there's the path with this long path, and press Enter, it's going to show the article. right? Because it's polling by ID. Going back to the router information, right? If I go back to routing for a second, here it is. So when I get the ID that's passed into this object, right? Here's the ID. So I say get my request parameters ID, this piece that's part of the second part of the path, right? And I want to use this to find by ID. So I'm going to say take my ID and return the article that I'm getting. All right. If I don't get an error, if I get an error, spit out the error. If I don't get an error, render the page with this template. Okay. My title is going to be article details, and pass in the article that I found through my find by ID method. That's what I'm doing. Okay. So that's how I do the find. Okay. If I post, there's two parts to it, right? What's the difference between get and post? What am I using post for? Hey, Austin, maybe you know this one.
Oh,
Come on, buddy.
that's a horrible stuff.
All right.
Post.
Yeah, because you know what's going to happen on the exam next week when we talk about stuff. I'm going to get you to do. No, I'm joking. Well, you need to understand what the difference is between get and post. If I get something, I'm actually reading the document, right? I'm reading the HTML page or the after it's been rendered. All I'm doing is I'm getting the data back from a fully rendered template page, right? If I get, right, that's different. That's what get is. If I post though, I'm sending the data from that page back to the router. Okay, that's what's happening. So there's two types of requests. I can do a get request, which is a read request, and a post request, which is a write request, or a, hey, do something with this request. It may not be a write request. It just means I need you to process something, right? So the post request will come in here, right? But right now I'm looking at the get part of the routing. Here's the post. It's the exact same URL. The get and the post aren't any different because I'm getting I'm posting from that same URL, right? So it says this: if I get a post coming from the same URL, the ID, right? What am I really trying to do? I want to update. That's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm generating a new object, right, with a new ID. That's what's happening here, right? A new article with a new ID, and with a new title, whatever the title from the body is. Notice that the ID is the exact same ID, right? And once I've generated my ID and my content, I'm pushing this whole thing, this is the safe way of doing it, back onto the database, right? So I'm not actually using the update that we use with the set parameter. I'm actually creating a new object and replacing the object that was there before. This is the safest method because if I try to update, sometimes it'll work, and sometimes if I don't have a persistent connection, it'll fail, right? This is a safer method of use to update. So I'm not updating. I'm not using the set method to update the article. I'm replacing the article's object with my own, which is the exact same data, by the way, right? So it's getting the data from the information I put into the post into the form, and I'm using that one to post. This is the easiest way to update. Notice how it's also redirecting me back when I'm done. If I don't get an error and I finish my update, right? I'm redirecting myself back to articles, which is the main page for the articles list. Okay, that's what's happening. Okay, if I delete, right? If I delete my article, that's if I press the delete button, I take the, I pump it into delete. So my actual URL changes to delete, plus the ID of the article that I'm deleting, right? And I'm actually getting it. I'm reading the delete, right? When I do that, I want to use the remove method, just like we did on the command line, to remove the article by ID. That's what's happening. So search by ID and get rid of it, whatever the article is, just like we normally would do on the command line. Then after we're done, if there's no errors, right, for whatever reason, redirect us back to the article list. Okay? That's the methodology for us to do full CRUD. We're going to build this for you, right? Because your lab, the next assignment you're going to get is take your little mini, portfolio site, add CRUD. Okay, it's coming. Just letting you know. It won't be today, but it will be next week when we get back after we do our exam, right? So just letting you know it's coming. So think about what you're going to add in. What kind of stuff do you want to kind of store on your portfolio site? It could be a list of contacts, hint, hint, right? And for now, we don't care about things like, I don't know, authentication. Don't worry about authenticating yourself, right? We don't want to do that. All we want to do is we want to store a list of contacts. So the next assignment you're going to get, assignment number 3, whatever it is, there's 2 that you're going to get. The next assignment is going to be update your portfolio site to add a list of contacts that anyone can do. You can list all your favorite, I don't know, your favorite places to eat or whatever, your favorite, a list of links that you really like, right? As an example, but it's going to be in the database. Okay, and it's going to be something that doesn't require authentication. Anyone can get to it for now, right? A list of links, okay? And you're going to use this same methodology. I've given you the building blocks right here. This is an example of what you can use to build your next assignment, right? There'll be issues, guaranteed. No, I'm not telling you because I want there to be issues. I want there to be issues. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there'll be issues because there's details involved, right? Like is all this working? Copying is one thing. You can look and go, yeah, I did the exact same thing and it's not working. Because there's extra details. You have to make sure that there's multiple files that you're juggling. You're juggling app.ts or JS if you're not using TypeScript. You're juggling the models, article.ts in this particular case, which is the model for the article. You're also juggling the routing, and you're also doing the views. These are all different things. There's going to be a new set of pages that you're going to create based on this CRUD that we're doing with Mongo. Let's look forward one more step. Then you're going to do, so this is what's coming. Just letting you know, right? So we've talked about how these piece part work, right? And the next part we're going to do is we're going to create a user model, and you're going to log in with another tool called Passport. Passport and Mongoose work together to authenticate you on MongoLab or MongoDB, right? Securely, to some point. It's not token authentication necessarily, but it gets you in. We use sessions, right, to get you in. So then you need to have a third schema, right, or a second schema. So the first schema is going to be, I don't know, list of links as an example. The second schema is going to be users, right, your user schema. And you're going to use 2 different schemas and 2 different collections, a collection of users and a collection of lists or links or whatever to get in, right? So I'm just giving you that idea. I want to give you this practice because when it comes down to the final project, you're going to have some kind of data store on the back end that you're going to use, right? And we're going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to ask everybody to do a secure site that you have only allows registered users to access because you're going to create a new application, right? And you're going to have some kind of data that you're going to pull where the schema is a lot more complex than this one. Now, if you're someone who doesn't know what they're doing or you're bored out of your head, right? Pair yourself with somebody who does, right? Because you need to put your brains together on this one, guys and girls. It's not something that's easy. None of these assignments you're going to get, your final project, are easy assignments that you can do on your own. Not one of them, right? Because there's pieces all over the place that you got to put together, collect, and make work as a whole. All right, trying to frame it for you so you understand the challenge, okay? I'm going to give you lots of examples, but no matter how many examples I give you, you still may have some issues because you're adapting what I'm giving you to your own stuff, right? Okay, anyone have any questions from a high level? I don't expect you to remember any of this stuff, like in terms of deep level. I want you to understand the process at a very high level. Anyone have a problem or not understanding what I'm doing? Please put up your hand now, because when we get into it, the next piece, your next lab is going to be do this, to actually create something, and it's it's not going to be so easy, right? It looks easy when you look at this. Yeah, I understand, right? And then when it comes down to it, you're like, didn't work, right? Can't connect. All right, so what did we cover today? We covered MongoDB. What is it, right? It's a NoSQL database, right? We look at collections. Collections are like tables, right? Documents are like records. Fields, right? They're the same. It's schemaless, so it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have a form or structure around it. Although with Mongoose, we choose to. We choose to do it so that we can have a structure when it comes to accessing our database. We talked about that. 2 different ways of accessing. We can test locally with our local database, and we can also test remotely with a live database on the cloud, like MongoLab, okay? One last piece. Let's deploy our little database to the cloud and see if Azure chokes when it comes to MongoLab, right? So I want to test it out, because this is the final piece. what do we do to deploy before we go? We got 5 minutes. Let's see if we can get this done. Good testing for you guys. All right, so one, I need to stop my server, right? This is the thing. I don't care about my Mongo server anymore, because I'm not going to do that. I'm using my Mongoose connection. Sorry, my Mongoose connection. So stop this too. And my Mongo lab is active, so I don't have to care about anything else. Okay, so these are all stopped. Okay, I'm going to exit from this. There you go. It's probably going to air it out. There we go. Okay, cool. In here, I want to do any updates I have. We did some updates. For example, I updated my app.ts, and I updated my index.ejs in my articles because, you know, Austin and I were working on this together. We're collaborating, right? And we created a content area for stuff. So I updated some stuff. Let's add that in. So I'm going to kind of add this in, and I'm going to say updated app.ts and index.ejs in article view. There we go. And I'm going to push it. So this is the last change I'm doing. So you should see the changes up online. If, by the way, you don't understand, that's why I've given you this little project. I want you to fool around with it if you have a chance to do it. It's great practice for you to take a look at it, because next week for your exam, I'm going to get you to generate, using the Express generator, a little site, right? It's not going to do anything with Mongo, right? But I'm going to ask you to do some stuff, and it's good to understand what I'm doing here. Okay. I need to connect. I need to create a space for myself on Azure. So I'm going to say portal.azure.com, right? I'm going to log in. Let's go back. Let's go back again. Portal.azure.com. And I'm going to log in as myself. I'll be okay if I can do that. Okay, yay. And I want to create some space for myself, so I'm going to make a new space. I'm going to go plus. And when Azure kind of responds, I'm going to go web and mobile, web app, and I'm going to enter a new one. I'm going to call it COMP2068 Mongo demo. And just to give you guys some room, if you guys want to call it that, I'm going to call it for winter 2016, right? So that way it's a little bit longer. When I create that, it's going to generate the space for it. Remember, I have a link in there to Mongo Lab, right? So if everything goes well, we'll see it run. And it'll be fully on the web. It'll be a cloud service pointing to another cloud service. One part is the web piece, the node piece, and the other part is the Mongo Lab, the online database, right? Okay, and one day when it updates, then we'll do the continuous deployment piece. So on your exam next week, GitHub and the continuous deployment. When I give you your Express generator assignment, please do GitHub and continuous deployment immediately. And then you're going to get some marks for that piece, because it's going to be included as part of your requirement, right? So do that right off the top. Just get it going, right, on continuous deployment. It's a strategy. All right. Next piece. I'm going to click continuous deployment. I'm going to configure my settings. I'm going to click my GitHub. On my GitHub, I'm going to choose my Georgian College. Under Georgian College, I'm going to choose my project, which is this one, and I'm going to press OK. And with everything goes well, it'll continuous deploy stuff from GitHub to Azure. Now, do you think there's going to be any problems? There's always problems. I like your attitude, right? Not because I want there to be problems. Because we're connecting to Azure, and we're using Azure to connect to Mongo Lab, we got to be very careful on how we do that. And there might be a problem that we may have to look up. I'm just going to put it up there for you, because you know what? Even with Heroku, like I talked about before, if you're a Heroku user, you need to sign up. It's not so straightforward to connect Heroku to Mongo Lab. There's just one more step you have to take, or else it won't work, no matter what you do. Okay, we're almost done. And I always like to wait for this to finish. I don't have to, But again, I wait for this to finish just in case there's a deployment issue. I can see that it's copying files. There's quite a few files here for this one. And remember that we also have gulp. Okay, see this? Failed. Why did it fail? Remember that it needs to run, in order for it to run, it needs to connect to MongoLab, right? So let's click on this thing and see what our stuff is doing, right? And it says fetching changes. Let's view the log, right? And see what's happening. Failed to send request. The operation timed out. All right. And if I click on this, you'll see, right? Here's my MongoLab, and it's going to give me this little string because no matter what I do, it's not connected. I'm not doing this to bug you guys, I swear. It's not for that reason at all, right? I'm doing it to show you that this whole thing, when we do MongoLab and Azure, it's not as straightforward as you'd like to think. Okay, let's get back to this and check out what the problem was for our activity. All right, let's sync it one more time. So synchronize source control. You sure you want to do this and deploy contents again for my Git repository? And I'll do it again for a second, right? It's being updated, right? And another good way of checking it is, let's check to see what's on there, right? So let's see what's in my Mongo database. Do I have my server exposed? Yes, server.js is exposed. Have I done anything different that I did before before I delivered this thing, right? Not really. The only thing I've added is a gulp file.js, right? And I've updated my app.js, right, which is inside my public folder, or my server folder, sorry. I've updated this app.js file, right? So it points to MongoLab, right? Here's my MongoLab, right? This. And this is the problem that we might get into. Azure requires to make sure that you're in the right position, right? Notice that it failed again. Here's something else. We can also look at some other stuff in Azure, right? If I look at all settings. One of the things that can also be the cause of Azure is where we deployed everything. If I go back to MongoLab for a second, and if I look at my articles collection, so if I go back to home, the sandbox itself, which is this one, Mongo demo, right? That's the sandbox that I'm using. Remember in the beginning, it asked us, where do you want to deploy this thing, right? And what part of Azure are you using? I actually chose Azure, right? Well, in here, when we first did it, I may have chosen the wrong location for Azure, right? Because it has if I've chosen the wrong location, for example, if I chose US West instead of US East or US Central, and yet my resources, when I created my space, was the wrong place, right? As an example, that's what could be the problem, all right? So let's follow up on this thing. I want you to try it for yourself. You have your own version, right? Yes?
So when I switched to East Asia, that's what we got, and we came up with no free options. So that's what I found.
Love it, right? There's other things too. Sometimes we have to actually do another thing on the back end and on Azure to tell it that there's a MongoLab connection, right? So there's different components that are connected, right? And one of the things we have to do is talk about what's connected on the back end of this thing, how it connects. If we don't tell it that MongoLab is there, right, as an example, that's another reason why it won't work, because it's blocking. It'll probably block MongoLab from functioning. So we'll talk about that. Like, I just wanted to show you that it's not as easy as it looks. And I'll have a solution for you guys when we get back next time. Notice also, by the way, that one more thing before you go, sorry. One more little thing. Remember last time when we were doing this project, right? If I look at my my app.js file, right, which is inside my server for a second, if I take a look at that, notice that there's something new that I've added in here, right? To show you how you can use TypeScript, I've created a new import. Remember that in the beginning, I created this custom error message, right? Well, now, see this function, import star as objects from this objects custom error? Well, I've created an objects folder with a module that's objects, like I talked about before, and this is the way you would add in a custom TypeScript object or a module, a class, right? So I've given you an example of how to do that, just in case, for whatever reason, you need to create a custom class and use classical inheritance instead of prototypical inheritance. Okay, so I've just done that as well. Questions before I let you guys go? Guys, I know this is grueling, but we had to get through this demo because if you didn't understand the high-level piece, and when I went right into it, next time when we get back, I would lose all of you, like, and you wouldn't be able to do your assignment at all, right? And I wouldn't want that. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Remember, next week when we get together, 1 o'clock, we have our exam, right? It's about, I'm going to scale it for about an hour and a half. You should be able to get it, most of you should be able to get it done within about 2 hours. Some of you will finish early. Some of you will run out of time, right? So good luck with that. There will be no multiple choice. It'll be strictly practical. All right, take care. Thank you.